When the essence of water fuses with the essence of fire, lightning is created. When the essence of metal overpowers the essence of wood, thunder is created. When the essence of metal creates the essence of water, rain follows. When the essence of wood produces the essence of fire, wind follows. Such is the way of Taoist weather magic, an arcane art so obscure that many don't even know it exists. Many of its secrets and traditions verge on extinction, many of its teachings yet to be translated and appreciated. The old masters who knew how to work the winds and the old priests who knew how to dance the rains have long since passed into the great unknown. Thousands of years worth of knowledge lost to the sands of time until now. The history of Chinese magic and mysticism goes back to the very dawn of time. In ancient China, sorcerers and magicians would distinguish themselves by becoming experts in very specific forms of magic. Some claimed to be able to turn invisible at will, either by affecting the perception of the perceiver, using certain magical talismans, or by using herbal mixtures. Some magicians would claim to be able to walk through solid walls by raising their vibrational resonance to high enough levels in order to fuse with the molecules of the wall. Others claimed they could teleport to far distant places and bring back rare fruit and treasures in order to gift them to the emperor. While some magicians claimed to be able to influence the weather and the natural world around them. By utilizing the powers of the 8 trigrams of the Bagua, incredible feats could be accomplished, such as summoning and controlling storms. The Bagua is extremely useful as it allows the magician to be able to tap into the 4 powers of heaven, consisting of clouds, fire, mist, rain, and thunder, and the 4 powers of earth, soil, wind, mountains, and water. The Taoists believed that the sky itself was a living entity, full of heavenly influences. What happens in the heavens up above with the weather has a deep effect on what happens to us down on earth. This has become famously known as above, so below. Taoist weather magic also goes by the name of Taoist heaven magic. The practice itself is vast and extensive. The weather can be used in an infinite amount of ways. One example of divination, the emperors of ancient China would hire mystics who would become imperial magicians. These elite priests became known as weather watchers. They were given the important task of predicting the weather and reading the omens within nature. They believed the celestial gods would manifest their approval or disapproval to the emperor by revealing changes in the natural world, revealing the will of heaven. The divinations of the weather are broken up into 4 main categories. The study of wind, represented by the Qian trigram, the study of fire, represented by the Li trigram, the study of earth, represented by the Kun trigram, and lastly the study of water, represented by the Kon trigram. The findings made by the weather watchers would decide the fate of the kingdom, such as the proper time to go to war, when to prepare for drought and extreme conditions, and warnings of upcoming disasters. Methods of weather divination include examining the angle of the rain, the thickness and direction it is coming from, and how quickly the rain stopped. Some types of dew were considered auspicious to Taoists, as dew represents abundance and growth. Rainbows are considered to be a fusion of both yin and yang powers. Observing the colors and the shape of rainbows allowed the Taoists to know prophecies. Taking a good look at cloud formations are also important. Halo-shaped clouds are seen as auspicious, whilst dark, gloomy clouds were seen as forbidding. Red clouds would indicate war. Hail was seen as a creation caused by yin and yang colliding together. When reading water and collecting water for magic, the Taoist usually collects it from a river which is slow moving. The slower the water, the more auspicious the qi is. Rivers that are ferocious and fast-paced are usually avoided because they wash away qi. This doesn't mean that they aren't useful. For example, collecting water from a fast river works well for erasing negative energy because it's intense. It breaks through old barriers. Also, fast-flowing waters are useful for deconsecrating objects. So by placing a talismanic object into a fast river, it strips that object of its magical energy, transforming a ritual tool into a mundane one. This is very useful if someone sends you a cursed item. So for example, a cursed amulet. Even if you get rid of the amulet and throw it away, the curse itself is still working because the energy inside of the amulet is still active. By submerging it into fast water, this cancels all of the toxic qi. Depth of water is also an important factor in Taoist practice. The deeper the water, the more energy it contains. For example, a calm ocean would have much more power than just a lake or a river. For cursing and hexing people, contaminated, stagnant, and toxic water should be collected. Wind directions are also of the highest importance in the Tao system of divination, as wind is seen as the messenger of change. Practitioners would listen closely to the sounds of the wind. If they heard what sounded like screaming or laughing, this could indicate disaster. Sometimes deciphering such sounds would be very difficult, so weather practitioners would use bloodstones to make the process easier. These stones work by translating heaven's language by holding it up to the ear to listen to heaven's whispers. In Tao weather magic, wind is divided into two different types. Yang wind is warm, refreshing, and gentle. It is wind that blows over oceans and rivers and is considered beneficial because it has a healing quality, able to dispel evil spirits. Yin wind is cold, bracing, and destructive. It is viewed as draining and damaging as it destroys the earth's qi. In summer, the wind contains more yang, and in winter, more yin. There also exist magical hand gestures known in the Taoist system as hand seals. There are 8 different hand seals that are used to summon the 8 different directions of wind. Here is an example of a southeastern seal along with a proper incantation that is designed to raise the wind. If thunder was recorded by the practitioner during divination, this was viewed as being highly auspicious in the Taoist tradition. Lightning is known as the fire of heaven. It is seen as being lucky because it destroys demons, evil mortals, and cursed objects. Trees that have been struck by lightning were often used to make powerful wooden talismans that are still used to this day for Taoist exorcisms. An example of inner alchemical-based weather magic comes from a practice in Taoism known as eating vapor. a process which allows the practitioner to absorb qi from mist, clouds and fog for the purposes of nourishing the vital organs and replacing qi that has been lost or used in weather rituals. Mist in Taoism is sometimes known as the breath of the Tao. This meditation is traditionally practiced during dawn, a time when yin energy gives rise to yang energy, therefore making the mist as healthy as possible. Certain mists contain beneficial energy which float over landscapes, valleys and mountains, especially pine trees. As the mist passes through them, it is further empowered by the environment, making it suitable to feed the mystic. An ideal place for the practitioner to soak up the mist would be in a pine forest located on the top of a high mountain. However, not all mists and fog are viewed as being beneficial. Some mists that travel over swamps are seen as poisonous. If this toxic qi enters the body, it can cause physical illness and moisture to build up in the lungs, and practicing the eating vapor exercise during rainfall is known to have the same negative effect. The body and the weather are deeply connected. The gallbladder relates to the clouds, the liver to the wind, the spleen to thunder, and the kidneys to rain. As the Taoist is meditating, he or she would color code the organs in order to work with them individually. Black for the kidneys, red for the heart, green or blue for the liver, and white for the lungs. The colors are there to aid in visualization and meditation exercises to make the process a lot easier. Cultivating the three dantians are an essential piece of Taoist practice. The lower dantian located in the navel area, the middle dantian located in the heart, and the upper dantian located just above the eyebrows. These three energetic centers must be balanced and aligned before ritual work can take place. Taoists who specialize in weather magic would pay very close attention to storing the powers of thunder into the lower dantian. Certain types of thunder magic, Li Fa, work well as methods of internal cultivation. The two categories are known as internal and external thunder magic. The internal focuses on healing and the external mainly on exorcisms. Yin thunder manifests as sharp, sudden thunderclaps, and yang thunder manifests as rolling thunder. One example of necromantic weather magic in China, it is believed that thunder causes dead bodies to swell up. During thunderstorms, the corpses would swell to such an extent that they wouldn't be able to fit inside of the coffins. To remedy this issue, a heavy object like a stone would be placed onto the stomach of the body. Keeping fresh storm water is very helpful in warding away evil spirits. The fire from the lightning allows the water to become consecrated, basically holy water, which can be sprinkled onto the famous Taoist peachwood sword and used as a sacred weapon. It is said that no demon can withstand a direct strike from one of these spiritual weapons. Throughout China's rich history, many large-scale battles were fought with the help of weather magic. Since weather magicians were a rare breed of practitioner, wealthy warlords and generals would pay large amounts of money to acquire the service of these skilled priests. The more powerful the priest, the more sought after he or she was. One of the earliest known examples of weather magic relates directly to a tribe known as the Yuban. During a battle with the Yuan tribe, the Yuban sorcerers were able to cause frost and rainstorms that would last long periods of time. The extreme conditions caused by the magic were so severe that the attacking Yuan tribe suffered from frostbite, resulting in their defeat. Ancient military strategies would include creating an extreme storm, then attacking the enemy just after they have been weakened by the cold and the elements. Such a tactic was usually executed during the middle of summer when the troops wore armor and clothes that were only suitable for warm conditions. Weather divination was a common practice during times of battle and warfare. For example, if the general orders his army to advance and the army's flag blows in the wind, if the flag gets stuck and gets itself wrapped around the pole, the general must immediately withdraw his army, as this is an inauspicious omen indicating it isn't the right time to dispatch the troops. Not paying any mind to such warning signs would often result in a major defeat for the general. In the Taoist weather magic pantheon of deities are various nature gods that govern different aspects of reality and the elements. Lei Gong, the intimidating lord or duke of thunder, a frightening creature with a fearsome appearance, carrying a drum and a mallet that produces the sound of thunder. He punishes those who are guilty of secret evils by using a chisel. Along with his wife Dian Mu, the elegant mother of lightning, these two storm deities take care of business as a husband and wife duo. Dian Mu carries with her two lightning mirrors, which allows her husband Lei Gong to see into the hearts of mortals and demons, to make sure they aren't punishing the wrong person. White lightning is used to manifest the hearts of men, whilst red lightning manifests the hearts of demons. Weather magicians can call upon the assistance of Lei Gong and Dian Mu for thunder magic, whilst other traditions use the Duke of Thunder to punish their enemies. Different Taoist sects and lineage groups do very different practices. Please keep that in mind. For summoning the powers of rain, a dragon god by the name of Ying Long should be petitioned. He is a 1,000-year-old winged dragon of rain, also known as the responding dragon, the controller of all waters, being able to create clouds with his breath alone. In the mythology, it is said that Ying Long helped the legendary Yu the Great with flood control. His name, the responding dragon, relates to the idea that if people paid offerings and tributes to him, he would respond to them by sending rain. However, if the people didn't honor him appropriately, he would send too much rain or not enough. Rituals would include rainmakers making dragon statues out of clay and performing the dragon dance to win over his trust. Even to this day, farmers and those who live agricultural lifestyles still pray to Ying Long. Another rain deity which is still honored in China today is Yu Shi, the rain master or lord of rain. He is known for magically ending droughts by pouring water from a sacred bowl onto the earth below. He also dwells on the mythical mountain of Kunlun. To aid with controlling the powers of wind, Feng Popo or Madame Wind is the ruler of storms. She is usually depicted as an elderly woman riding through the clouds on the back of a large tiger. She carries with her a goatskin leather bag which contains various powerful winds of all directions, speeds, and intensities. When contacted by the weather magician, if she is correctly appeased, she will open this bag and wind will be generated. Madame Wind is often seen as the replacement of Feng Bo, who is another Taoist wind deity, depicted as a hideous creature with the body of a deer, the head of a bird, horns, the tail of a snake, and the pattern of a leopard. However, these monster-like depictions changed, and during the Ming Dynasty, he started to take on the form of an old man, carrying a fan. It is important to say that there are two different types of Taoist practice: religious Taoism and folk Taoism. Most weather gods always start off in the folk traditions. Before I move on to the darker spirits in the tradition, I must first talk about the most important spirit or deity in the whole practice of Taoist weather magic. Not just the most important spirit, but really the foundation of the system. The master weather magician himself, Zhuge Liang, otherwise known as Kong Ming. He is the genius strategist of the Three Kingdoms era. He served in the Shu Han state, close friend and advisor to Liu Bei. Kong Ming rose to the prestigious level of prime minister and has become famous in China as an intelligent and resourceful leader known for his feather fan. He is the inventor of the Kong Ming lantern, known in the West as the Chinese lantern. He also invented the wheelbarrow and was said to have created the Chinese steam bun. He is known as a writer, general, strategist, diplomat, inventor, and of course an occultist, an expert in the field of feng shui. Kong Ming is my main inspiration for carrying a feather fan. I have already covered his weather ritual in full detail in part 1 of this documentary. Please see that video if you haven't. But in short, the Romance of the Three Kingdoms historical novel states that in chapter 49, Kong Ming used weather magic to change the direction of the winds from northwest to southeast during the Battle of the Red Cliffs, the largest naval battle in human history. As a result, the fire attack was a success, and the allied forces of Liu Bei and Sun Quan scored a major victory against Cao Cao. For this reason, I honor Kong Ming as the central deity of the practice. I've talked quite a bit about weather gods and deities. What about demons in the tradition? I think some of my occult friends will love to know about this. In weather magic, there exist entities known as demonic whirlwinds. High-ranking demons would be able to travel around in whirlwinds and use them as vehicles to carry their dark, heavy energy, allowing them to travel around without losing chi. It is known that if a demonic whirlwind enters the area, the temperature will drop suddenly and the smell of sulfur will be present in the air. These whirlwinds take on a blacker than black appearance. They are unnaturally dark and usually much taller than humans. Their shapes and sizes vary, as sometimes several demons can inhabit a single whirlwind at one time. They are parasitic by nature and look for hosts so they can drain chi from living mortals. As the demon begins to display its true form, it will usually show itself as a dark creature, almost like a shadow with horns. When the demon manifests properly, it will leave the observer totally paralyzed, unable to speak, unable to move. It renders you almost lifeless, because whilst the demon is in close proximity to you, it is draining your life force to support its own physical manifestation. It's absorbing your vital chi, and if this continues for much longer, it can result in a complete emotional breakdown. Practitioners can go crazy as a result of close encounters with demonic whirlwinds. In weather magic, you are taught to avoid these entities at all cost, as no good comes from working with them. But personally, I have found them to be useful in what I would call retaliation magic, meaning if you throw a baneful curse at me, I will return the favor and send a demonic whirlwind after you. It's not something one should ever do, and I don't recommend it at all. I'm a very peaceful type of practitioner and I'm not vengeful or malicious, but it is possible to do this. If the Taoist wishes to summon wind, a special kind of whistling incantation is required. The sound is similar to that of a whistle, which is used to call forth an animal. When performing the rituals, the practitioner will sometimes use a magical bag and attempt to trap or capture the wind into this bag so it could be used for future workings. The bag would usually be used with a rope. Once the wind has been captured, the rope should be tied, sealing the bag with magical energy. The winds could then be controlled depending on the tightness of the ropes and the type of knot that was used to seal the bag. In some traditions, a red silk handkerchief is used by making 3 tight knots. The wind inside would not be able to escape if you do it properly. The release of 1 knot was known to bring a gentle southwestern wind. The release of 2 knots would summon forth a very powerful northern wind, and by completely removing all 3 knots would summon a full-on windstorm. This last method was usually done to destroy things, ghosts, and people. The whole concept of using a bag for the winds comes from the 2 different versions of the deity Fong Bo and Fong Popo. Tools to help with summoning wind are bezoar stones. These are stones that are found inside the tissues of animals and humans. Also, I use the herb broom in order to generate wind, and the Taoist should expose the magical stone to fresh air. I always do this by placing the stone on a high point on the altar, and the herb broom should be submerged into water. When practicing rainmaking, the Taoist should abstain from meat, wine, sex, and any form of drugs for at least 3 days before the ritual. People who are in the process of mourning the death of a loved one and women in their menstrual cycle are excluded from taking part. In some traditions, Taoist shamans would dance naked around a burning fire. The belief was that as the shaman danced, he or she would sweat, and the drops of sweat would encourage drops of rain to fall down. Those who are aware of sympathetic magic would have no problems getting this to work. Some stones and crystals that aid in rainmaking consist of jade, which is activated by throwing the jade strongly into water. Also agate, hematite, aquamarine, and jasper, among many others. Herbs used in Taoist rainmaking are bracken, heather, and fern. A weather magician would typically burn fern outside to help with rainfall. To stop rain and encourage sunshine, a sunstone should be used in combination with malachite and chrysocolla. These stones work great for stopping storms. Sea magic, the art of manipulating and changing the ocean, is also a part of this tradition. I believe this is how humanity were able to establish nautical trade back in ancient times. If a Taoist wishes to calm an aggressive ocean, he or she should first go into meditation, a state of flow. Then the person should either contact an ocean deity or a water deity. Yin Long would be very suitable in this case. Some methods include writing a petition to the gods. After the petition has been drawn, the paper should be pinned onto a doll made for hexing. Any kind of hexing doll will work just fine. The Taoist should then take this doll to the beach and cast it into the water. This should calm the ocean in just a few hours. Taoist practitioners who specialize in sea magic tend to work closely with lunar energies, as the moon controls the tides. Using moonstones works very well here, and these sea magicians tend to work with the element of water in the Wu Xing system. Overall, it's quite a cold, yin type of practice, which is often done at night. Sea magic is considered a branch of weather magic, and it's the category that I have the least amount of experience with because I don't live near the ocean. However, in recent years, I have discovered a good substitute. By simply placing a bowl or chalice of salt water onto the altar and a map of the area you are trying to change, this is enough to effectively practice sea magic. In order to bring about snow via ritual, practitioners must perform the spell on a platform or a mound that's at least 3 feet above the ground. The magician should loosen his or her hair, perform the ritual barefoot with the use of a consecrated sword. One should sprinkle talismanic water in the 4 directions and start the working facing east. A special type of ritual dance is also required, known as pacing the 7 stars, pacing the steps of Yu and Bugong. This shamanic ritual dance is related to Yu the Great, as he was known to walk with a limp. The Taoist would emulate this limping walk for spiritual work. As the Taoist takes zigzag-like steps, he or she would invoke the spirits of the stars whilst making hand gestures and saying incantations. The pacing symbolizes the magician leaving the earth and crossing over to the 9 heavens and into the dimension of the immortals, essentially opening the gate to the spirit realms and to heaven. One should visualize themselves flying across the universe, traveling from star to star. This astral journey starts from the first star, located on the outer lip of the bowl of the dipper, pacing to the last star, located on the end of the handle. The Taoist would sometimes imagine the northern dipper on the ground as he or she steps. A lot of intense visualization is required for pacing the stars. Once the crossover meditation from earth to heaven is finished, supernatural feats can be accomplished, such as destroying evil spirits with thunder, curing diseases, controlling entities, and prolonging one's lifespan. In some Taoist sects, the Northern Dipper is seen as a celestial bridge between heaven and earth. It is believed that the gate of heaven is a physical place that exists, and if the magician wishes to open the gate of heaven via pacing, this gate is located at the tail of the dipper. Each of the 7 stars represents a magical gate known as a star gate. It is believed that all humans are under the protection of these stars, as they determine when a person will die and if a person will be rich or poor. Pacing the dipper works like a more technical walking meditation that aligns the yin with the yang. Very, very useful for weather magic, but I must say this: the practice of pacing is not for the beginner. One should not dabble with the stars unless they feel confident enough to practice safely. This is one of those traditions that requires a lot of precision, a lot of attention to detail. Some Taoists believe that if you take a wrong step, you can be struck down there and then without warning. If you want to do great things with this magic, remember these words: the true power comes from the 7 stars and your relationship with them. I value the stars so much that I carry an amulet everywhere I go. On the back it has the talismans of the Star Lords. The most powerful tools to aid with snowmaking are bezoar stones, especially those found inside the stomachs of wolves. Using such a stone is usually enough to cause heavy snowfall. Very often, the majority of people I meet are not interested in creating storms or causing bad weather. Most just want to stop storms and prevent destruction. Now, this is very tricky. It's tricky to try and use long-distance weather magic to stop a storm, because the magician runs the risk of unintentionally making that storm worse. It is always safer and less risky to practice a ritual in the country where the storm is currently taking place. The further away the magician is, the more volatile the spell is, and the magician has a lot less control over his or her weather spell. I've heard horror stories of people trying to stop drought in different countries and accidentally causing floods. Long-distance spells are harder to control, especially if you are on your own as a solitary practitioner. But there are still ways we can help. There are 6 traditional laws to Taoist weather magic. One of them is the law of personification, which basically means that you, as the magician, will personify certain types of weather by giving a storm a name, and rather than looking at it just as a storm, you see it as a living entity with its own unique personality. Usually, the magician will imagine a severe storm as a child having a temper tantrum, and in some traditions they like to imagine storms as baby demons that are full of anger and rage. This law is based on human nature influencing Mother Nature. This whole universe works like a two-way street. If the weather has an effect on us, we can have an effect on it. It always works both ways. It's always a lot better when you have someone else that you can work with, because you've got 2 people with their own unique energies using the same incantations, the same ritual tools, albeit maybe on different altars. But if these 2 people can come together with the same intention in mind, for example to stop Hurricane Dorian, usually it works a heck of a lot better when there's a team and not just one person. So what do you do when you are faced with a tantrum? You try to soothe and calm the situation, a practice known as soothing the storm. It helps if you imagine an angry emotional spirit inside of the storm. You should start by sedating the spirit that lurks within it. The magician should begin by staring deeply into the storm clouds, allowing his or her mind to arise, lifting up from the body, traveling all the way to the clouds and mist above. If you imagine your mind as a sword, it should penetrate the clouds and the mist. Pick a certain spot in the cloud and remain focused on that one spot, giving it your full attention. If you are dealing with a lightning storm, obviously you don't want to be struck by lightning. To remain safe, you will need to shut off the energy of the heart for a short time whenever you see a lightning flash. The belief is that lightning is fire, and fire corresponds to the heart. So by sealing the heart's fire energy, lightning's fire energy will not be able to manifest, because the heart and fire share a powerful connection with each other. The internal fire will influence the external fire, so by disrupting this process, it helps stop the lightning. The magician should then use his or her hand, raise your hand towards the direction of the spot that you have used for the visualization, and begin to make stroking gestures in the same way as you would stroke a pet dog or comfort a loved one who is in a bad mood. You're comforting the storm, accompanied with soothing words in a gentle tone of voice, and incantations such as this: "Heaven is pure whilst earth is calm," and a left-handed seal should be used for dispersing chi. Continue doing this until you see a difference in the weather. Make sure you are calm and collected. Make sure you aren't rushing the process. Take your time with it. Remember to keep visualizing the storm as a child or as a baby demon. Then raise both of your arms, point them towards the storm clouds, and make a separating gesture with your arms, like you are reaching up to the skies to pull the storm apart, but be very gentle. You are feeling the clouds with your fingers, feeling the water of the rain on your skin. Imagine the molecules of the clouds and the vapors slowly coming apart piece by piece. Try to visualize the cloud structure of energy. This is sometimes known as an energy matrix. Really imagine what the sensations would be like. Of course, it's different for everyone, but really focus on pulling apart, very gently separating the clouds to allow a gap for the sun to shine through. The magician should then visualize the storm's energy being divided whilst feeling the energy being pulled away. Make no jerky or sudden movements whilst doing this. Keep relaxed and in control. Within about 10 to 15 minutes, the storm should subside. This is a method that could save many lives. Storms are really ever destroyed because they are energy, and energy cannot be destroyed, only transformed. In this case, the energy has been sedated. If you prefer to work directly with spirits, an easier method would be to petition a god of water like Ying Long. To stop a storm, one should write a sincere petition on a piece of paper asking for the bad weather to end by addressing the deity directly. You should burn spirit money, burn the petition, and make offerings to the god. The smoke will travel up into the heavens above, forming a line of communication with you and the spirit. The spirit will then read what you've written, and if it agrees to help you, it should help stop the bad weather. This is one of the easier methods to help with suppressing storms. Please be advised, you must write the name of the god or spirit you are working with. If you don't, the belief is that other spirits will steal the money for themselves and the spell won't work. Taoists tend to believe that the spirit world functions quite a lot like the mortal world, and in order for the gods to continue helping people, they must be rewarded for their services. Spirits of deceased ancestors are known to buy their way into higher spiritual planes. The living relatives must give money to these dead loved ones. If money isn't given, they cannot ascend the social ladder of the spirit realm. Again, this concept is a mirror of how this world works. Some Taoists believe that you shouldn't use spirit money, but actual real money, since real currency is something we value a lot more. Very often when working with gods, the whole point is to persuade and compel the god into helping you. Some believe that if you use spirit money, the spirit will grant you a false favor because the money may be seen as false. For example, the spirit that you petition to stop rain may promise that the rain will be stopped, but actually it won't until real money is offered. By using your own real-world money, the gods will see that you are serious and sincere, and they are more likely to assist you with weather magic. When practicing thunder magic for internal cultivation, rituals are usually performed on the first day after the Lunar New Year. When a thunderstorm is occurring, the Taoists should head outside, face the direction of the storm, and breathe in the electrified energy. Whilst making magical hand gestures and saying incantations, the thunder will circulate throughout the Taoist organs, eventually settling in the gallbladder where it should remain. Its main purpose is to light the furnace of alchemy in the stomach area. Once the fire has been started, the proper meditation can begin. The first two elements that join together are metal and water. The energy of metal is white and it's stored in the lungs. The energy of water is black and it's stored in the kidneys. Both energies are circulated upwards, reaching the mouth. They mix with the saliva. As the Taoist breathes through the nose, he or she should also swallow the saliva. The combination of both breath and saliva will then travel back to the furnace in the stomach, where the process of inner change will begin. After this has been done, the next element, the energy of earth, is brought from the spleen and sent upwards to the mouth, once again fusing with the saliva. By breathing inward and swallowing, this mixture is sent to the stomach to add more power to the process. This essence takes on a yellow color. Lastly, the energies of wood and fire are fused. Wood is drawn from the liver and fire from the heart, both mixed in exactly the same way as before. All of this is done whilst in a trance state, visualizing the different colors, the different tastes and vibrations. For me, it tends to feel like gentle electricity. Timing is everything with weather magic. Certain days of the week are selected to summon certain weather types. So, for example, rainmaking rituals are usually done on Wednesdays, and rituals to bring about sunny conditions are usually done on Sundays. So now it's time to move on to the next segment, showcasing the opinions and experiences from occultists, investigators, open-minded people, and spiritual people in general. I hold the belief that in the modern occult community today, there is a lot of diversion. You often see people arguing about left-hand path, right-hand path, Eastern, Western methods of practicing magic. I'm all about building bridges and opening lines of communication with practitioners that normally wouldn't speak to each other. I think that keeps things interesting. You often hear the expression, put your differences aside. I don't think that's correct. I think you should acknowledge your differences and celebrate them and put them in the spotlight, especially if you are trying to pioneer a very obscure form of magic, like what I'm doing with weather magic. Prior to me coming on YouTube and uploading these videos, there wasn't a single person on this whole website who was making videos on Taoist weather magic. You can check it out for yourself. When you tap into something as obscure and as rare as this, you find a true gem, a hidden gem. And I think it's absolutely necessary in order for this tradition to survive in the modern day. I must do the work of finding practitioners from all over the globe in order to preserve this knowledge. So, without further ado, let's get into some videos from some of the most respected occultists in the community today.
Good evening, Blessed here, and I'm gonna discuss about Taoist weather magic and my experiences with it so far. This is one of the types of magic that I practice today as a practitioner of magic. And I love practicing this type of magic, although to me it consumes a lot of energy and it's not that easy at all, but it feels fulfilling. Most especially if you're able to do the ritual properly, you will really see the results. The last two rituals that I had with weather magic, with Taoist weather magic, I was able to do it with Lord Josh, not in person but in spirit. So the effects are obvious, and I could really say that it's a potent and very powerful type of magic because from category 5, Hurricane Dorian downgraded to category 2, and it's a big success. And I'm very grateful to the deities that we've worked with in that ritual, such as the dragon god of water and rain Yinglong, the duke or the lord of thunder Lei Gong, Master Kongming, Master Zhuotze, and and a lot more deities. So most especially those we've worked with those 4 deities in order to appease or soothe the storm. And I was also able to summon a light rain or summon light rains using using this type of magic. And I was also able to use long distance weather magic to, it's not that I'm bragging about it, I'm just telling my experience. It's not that I'm taking credit. In order to either change the direction of the storm or soothe the storm in storm prone places such as in my country, which is the Philippines. So, as a person who experienced being hit by a superstorm herself, it really inspired me to practice this type of magic. If you remember Typhoon Yolanda or Typhoon Haiyan, I was there. And when Typhoon Haiyan was in our place at that time, thank goodness our house was made out of durable and solid concrete. I was very scared. as if I felt like I even asked when it was the time when Yolanda was in the place, is this even the end of the world? It's why that at that very moment, whenever I remember that, that gives me inspiration to practice this type of magic. We can save the infrastructure. We can save people in a specific place against those superstorms, those hurricanes, those typhoons, using this, as long as it's used properly. It's not yet too late to save Mother Nature. It's not yet too late to restore the balance to Mother Nature. After all, we're a part of Mother Nature, and we can use um, this form of magic in order to save lives, in order to restore the balance in Mother Nature as well. And we can also help um, remove the drought by means of summoning rains. By means of we can even balance the temperature in the place by means of raising and making raising the temperature as well as making it colder. I've also experienced that myself, and you just have to I if you're a magical practitioner, I highly suggest that you you try to study, you try to learn, and you try to practice this type of magic, because I'm telling you, this is very potent. So this is real magic. This is a legit form of magic, and a very effective, a very powerful, a very potent form of magic that is actually very helpful to the world. And I think that's it.
Thank you for the video, Bless, and thank you so much for sharing your experiences with us. It's true, Bless and I did a ritual to try and calm down and soothe Hurricane Dorian, and it's important to me that people realize this tradition is real. It exists. This magic is not a fantasy. And if you don't believe it, I always tell people, try it. Try it for yourself. If you are a disbeliever, put your disbelief to the test and give it a go. People have been influencing and changing the weather since the very dawn of time. So I always find it hard when people say I don't believe in it, but then when a massive hurricane hits, you should see my inbox, all the non-believers telling me to pray. It makes me laugh quite a bit. But it's true, you see, and that's the thing with this kind of magic. When you put the effort in and you put the energy into it, you will get results. It's not just me. There are people now that I am training on my Taoist Facebook group, and they are using methods from great books like Taoist Weather Magic and Feng Shui by Professor Jerry Allen Johnson, which I consider one of the greatest books of all time. I always sing the praises of that book, and of course, Romance of the Three Kingdoms, which is the very foundation for my own personal practice. Without that book, you wouldn't be watching this documentary. That's how much it has inspired me to learn the art, because of Zhuge Liang. And it's also inspiring other people as well. There's currently over 100 members in my group learning weather magic. It has become my mission to spread these teachings far and wide. Bless is one of the elite few who understands it like I do. She was already aware of Kongming before she met me, and now she has set up an amazing outdoor altar. The ritual Bless and I did to soothe Dorian worked, and I had a few messages from people asking, were you surprised that it worked? No, not at all. 10 years ago, if you were to ask me that, maybe, but certainly not now. Bless and I are a great team, and we will do whatever we can to be of service to humanity. So let's move on to the next video.
Heaven is pure whilst earth is calm. Heaven is pure whilst earth is calm. Heaven is pure whilst earth is calm.
Hello everybody, this is D.H. Thorne here. Josh Allen had asked me to contribute to this video about Taoism and Taoist weather magic, and I was very happy to do so. My own personal form of magic definitely takes ideas from Taoism and implements them as part of the philosophy that kind of is part of the monist structure of my worldview and my magic. my book, Become the Maelstrom, actually capitalizes on one of, or many of the principles of Taoism, but one in particular is the idea of Wu Wei. And this is the idea that we don't force anything. We try to find the flow and current of reality and try to align with our true nature, our true intention, and try to go with the flow. And only then, and especially then, our magic has miraculous results. When we try to force reality to do what we want, it's no different than trying to hold on to water and closing your fist tightly around it. When you try to grab reality forcefully and try to make it do what you want, you tend to, in that effort, you chase it away. The only way to truly embrace reality is to cup it in your hands openly and to be part of it, to become part of that nature. And so when I do my own magical rituals, when I do my own magical work, I use some rather Taoist ideas. And that is, first of all, I try to make sure what the flow of reality is already looking like. Instead of doing magic with a cause and effect kind of mentality, I see magic more as a celebration of a thing that is already in motion, a thing that's already happening, and I am just adding my energy to it. Kind of like chaos theory. This idea that a butterfly will flap its wings somewhere in Africa and cause a hurricane somewhere off the coast of America at some point is very relevant to this. It's kind of feeling the flow, feeling where that is, and then adding my intention and energy to it to make it manifest what I want. So it's kind of like a celebration, as I said, of what is already happening. Because if you truly believe that you are the universe, if you truly believe you're the cosmos, if you truly believe you are the Tao, then there's really nothing to it. It's already happening. And you are just a mask anyway of the Tao. You are just another face of the Tao, another face of the one, of the whole. Now, Taoism, of course, has a lot of corollaries around the world. There are a lot of mystical traditions that have come to similar conclusions. They're definitely different. They all have their own cultural flavor, their own differences. But you have Neoplatonism or Platonism, you have Hermetics, and you have Gnosticism, which all seem to be not the same by any stretch, but they all have very similar observations about reality, and they all seem to get something right. And so you can actually realize that this doesn't have to be like, if you're a skeptic, if you're someone who doesn't believe in magic, you don't believe in sorcery, you don't believe in spirits or the spirit world, you can still follow and listen to and appreciate the principal underpinnings of Taoism. You can still read the Tao Te Ching, you can still, listen or read Lao Tzu and get something valuable and an understanding about nature. Now, no, it won't teach you about the physics necessarily of reality, but it is a philosophy of reality that's very valid and useful, and people have been doing this for generations, and it works very well. Now, of course, there's another thing I wanted to bring up, and that is that a lot of what we see in our various cultures are personifications of what I call sentient archetypal consciousness. And these are ideas, these are archetypes like Jungian archetypes. These are archetypes in the spirit world or in the astral world or in our perception, which have the same or similar qualities no matter where you go. And what you end up seeing is that every culture creates a persona, a god or an entity to surround that. In my own personal practice, these are egregoric masks, and these are very valid and very useful entities to work with. But they should not be confused with being as separate, perhaps, as we think they are. And I want to give you an example of this in Chinese magic, which is very interesting. That is, if you go back to the dawn of most of world history, of Western history, to Greece, you have this time period where the ancient Greeks were kind of becoming very important as far as intellectualism in the world. And they had these great centers of learning, and they actually extended into parts of India. And via the Silk Road, you had actually a lot of exchange between, the furthest reaches of China and Greece. And you had actually Chinese monks, Taoist monks, would be going to, Greek centers of learning to discuss philosophy and things. It was an awesome time. I wish I could have just gone back in time with a translator and just checked it out. It would have been really cool. Well, anyway, what you find is that certain entities, in particular Boreas from Greece, from ancient Greece, which was the god of the north wind, can actually be traced via the Silk Road through India to China to Japan. So you end up with Fengbo or Fengpopo, which is the male and female version of the same Feng, archetype of entity, and it becomes Fujin in Japan. And the way we know this is the same entity, most likely, in fact, almost definitely, and via cultural diffusion from the historical perspective, is they all have the same symbology of carrying around this bag of air or a cloak of air that's been turned into a bag, like a cloak that's been tied up into a bag, that is where the wind is stored, and they'll squeeze the wind and the air out to cause chaos and all this kind of stuff, and to cause storms and wind. And we see this in each one of these things, and they have a lot of the same symbolism. So it's really interesting, it's really fascinating to see how these things travel around the world, and how this might also explain why there's some similarities in some of these ancient thinkers, these ideas of Platonism, Neoplatonism, and Hermetics and Gnosticism. We could almost see that there would have been an exchange also of the Taoist ideals to the West. And we see this in some of the more mystery traditions of the West, some very fundamental similarities that are there that most people don't notice, probably because they don't realize that there was this exchange going on once upon a time. Anyway, I'd like to thank Josh Allen for having me on, and you can, of course, find my book on Amazon. It's called Become the Maelstrom, and you can find me on From the Ashes Publishing and Dark Sorcery. Thanks, guys. My name is D.H. Thorne.
Thank you, DH, for sharing your knowledge with us. It is much appreciated. I have left a link in the description of the video to buy Thorne's book. Please consider checking it out. DH, you raise a lot of great points here. It's fascinating to see so many weather gods, especially gods of wind, using bags and pouches that control various directions and strengths of wind. It's like there is something universal about the bag itself, hence why it is used in wind rituals. When discussing gods and the masks they wear, I often draw comparisons to the surface of water. On the surface, what do you see? A reflection. These gods are usually reflective of the cultures they belong to, almost always. Hence, when you see Taoist gods, they wear Chinese robes and look Chinese. It's evident that the ancient people were putting so much of themselves into these deities. But what happens when you go beyond the surface of the water? You go deeper and it gets darker. You stop seeing the reflection of yourself and eventually discover the abyss of energy which lurks underneath, because all entities in their purest forms are just that, different expressions of life essence. I personally believe we shouldn't spend too much time in the shallow water, nor should we dive in at the deep end. We should try to find a middle path. Sometimes the reflections are helpful. The masks these spirits wear allow us as magicians to tap into them much easier. I'm happy to swim into this abyss, but I always appreciate the reflective nature of these entities. Thanks a lot, DH. Let's see who else we've got now.
Hello YouTube, today I'm going to be talking about Taoist weather magic from a mystical, magical, and a little bit of a scientific perspective. And I'd like to start out with the great potential this practice has to enliven and empower other systems and symbols. Taoism itself as a system has a very strong basis in understanding yin and yang and duality as well as the balance thereof. It also has a strong tradition of connection with the world of nature and with the heavens, and a strong emphasis on elegance based on these understandings. These alone make it an invaluable source of wisdom for any kind of practice, but also when combined with weather magic, it opens up other dimensions of possibility for practice and integration. To me, weather magic is an excellent way to go deeper into some of these things, like the connection and the deeper listening required in Taoism. And it's also an excellent way to have results and interactivity with your magic and with the outside world that you wouldn't otherwise have in a lot of practices. I'd also like to take note of Lord Josh's interest in keeping rituals active and participatory, and I would say this could be incorporated powerfully into pretty much any system as well, whether it be traditionally or just through your own methods. Incorporate your full body and your energy into any of your workings with movement and participation. On a scientific note, I want to say that it's incredibly interesting that metal and wood are elements within the Chinese system, which are inorganic and organic material if you were working within Wilhelm Reich's system. And Wilhelm Reich used these two different kinds of material to basically channel ki energy or prana into certain spaces and devices without, not mechanical devices, just by layering these elements. And one of the things that he was famous for was actually controlling the weather with these devices. And I think that's all I have for now.
Thank you, Ethan, for your involvement. I appreciate it very much. You bring up a lot of great points here. Full body movement and motion is very important to me. Whenever I practice, there is a lot of physicality involved. It's the same when I practice Tai Chi or star stepping. It's all about getting the Qi flowing around the body. When Qi circulates properly, the body will be nourished. But if you let it stagnate, or if one of the 12 meridians becomes congested, this can be quite dangerous to your health. So my rituals are done to increase blood flow to certain areas, and by taking deep breaths and moving around, this helps with practical magic. It also helps to get me into the right kind of headspace as well. In some clips, you will see me using a horse whisk. The motions that I am creating here are done for the purposes of building momentum. I'm creating an energy vortex which will travel from the earth, ascending all the way to heaven above. This method is usually done to generate wind and scatter storm clouds. People seem to forget that the greatest tool you have at your disposal is your own physical body. By pacing, by rocking, dancing, making magical hand gestures, you put your own body in rhythm with the universe, and to me that is trance state. Also, on the subject of Wilhelm Reich, who in my opinion is a genius, I use 2 orgonite pyramids on my outdoor altar, containing amethyst crystals and magnetic shavings. I find them to be incredibly useful for weather manipulation. I plan on buying some of those cloud-busting orgon cannons next year. I'll let you know how they work. Thank you, Ethan, and thank you to everyone who has taken part in this documentary on Taoist weather magic. I hope you have found this very long presentation informative and helpful. I hope you will consider trying some of these methods for yourself, and of course, always draw your own conclusions. Thank you for watching. I'll see you soon in future projects.